Dan fan, don't upload the Jojo review on Friday when you're supposed to, and then you upload it on Christmas Eve? You don't understand. I am the uploading master of YouTube. You cannot comprehend my computations in deciding when to upload these videos. You have to at least have an IQ of 152 to understand my uploading regimen. Jojo review, guys! So, we got a Fugo episode, and we got his flashback immediately. Usually you gotta kind of work for the flashback, you know, they kind of prelude to it, and then boom, you finally get it, and you're like, oh yes, this makes sense now. But no, you get it right away in this episode. I'm satisfied immediately. So the episode starts off, and Fugo's driving, they're in Pompeii, and Giorno is holding the map and giving Fugo directions, and during the drive, Giorno says, oh, you missed a turn. And then Fugo stops the car, turns over to Giorno and goes, you bitch, how could you do this to me? You are clearly scum of the earth. What is the purpose of even holding a map without giving the directions of where I should be going? Clearly, Fugo is correct in this situation. I hate it when I trust someone to give me directions and they don't do their fucking job. But of course this is alluding to Fugo's personality, which will be further explained in this episode. At first when I saw him, he came off like as a teacher type because he was teaching Narancia some math and stuff like that, but you can see that he has a temper. You know, while he was teaching Narancia that math, he got it wrong, and Fugo just freaks out and stabs a pen in his cheek. You know, it's like, you gotta calm down, dude. So they're going through these ruins, and Fugo spots a mirror, and in the mirror he sees a guy coming out of the pillar. So he turns around to warn the others, like, oh, there's a guy out there, and he's not there. And he kind of goes back and forth between the pillar and the mirror before he realizes, oh, he's inside the mirror. Got it. But Giorno and Abba can't really see him inside the mirror. Only Fugo sees him inside the mirror. So when he notices that this mirror man has a stand, he pushes Giorno and Abba back, you know, like, get out of the way. And then he sees them sort of disintegrate away from him before he finally lands. And at first he's like, you know, what happened to them? What did he do to them? But of course, actually what happened was he pulled Fugo inside the mirror, and since they were outside the mirror, they disappeared, and now he can't see them anymore. So I've seen this idea of being inside a mirror done a few times in other shows. One of the ways I've seen it done was when you get pulled inside the mirror, you don't notice that you're inside the mirror at first. Things get flipped, but you can still see other people. So the idea that you see other people's reflections, but you can't actually communicate with those people while you're inside the mirror. But in this version, only living things that he and his stand choose to be inside the mirror will show up while you're inside the mirror. And then everything else just has to do with non-living things, objects, and stuff of that nature. So during the episode, some crows die, and all of a sudden the crows appear inside the mirror world because they're not technically living anymore. And also because only living things that he allows in the mirror can come in the mirror, since a stand is like your life energy, he chooses to leave Fugo's stand outside of his mirror world. So now he can't use his stand while he's in here. Very clever indeed, and quite tricky, because I don't really see, at least not immediately, how Fugo could defeat this guy without his stand. So Giorno knows right away that it has to do something with this mirror, why Fugo disappeared, right? So he's examining the mirror, and Fugo tries to release his stand, but it won't actually show up around him to help him fight. Instead, it shows up in the real world, outside, so he can still feel his stand, but he can't actually bring it into the mirror with him. So while Giorno is looking at the mirror, trying to investigate what the heck went on here, his stand pops up behind Giorno. And Abba is immediately freaked out by this. He's like, Giorno, slowly walk towards me. Now, upon first seeing Purple Haze, granted, I've, seen it in the opening theme, Purple Haze appears and he's like kind of crouched down on the ground, like just foaming at the mouth. He sounds like he's dying. Voice acting very top tier, because that definitely sounds like death when I hear it for the first time in this anime. So immediately you're getting that impression, oh, his stand is dangerous and probably sentient. And he is actually pretty sentient. We'll get to that later, though. So we get into Fugo's backstory. And when he first comes into the mirror world, you kind of have his backstory, or a summary of his backstory, kind of read out loud by the... I'm just going to keep on calling him Mirror Man, because it sounds really cool and mysterious. He has a little profile of Fugo. He opens this up and he kind of reads it. And what we get out of that is that he's very intelligent, and one day just went berserk over this professor. Flashback, we kind of get into the idea of how this came to be. So Fugo grew up a rich kid, and he was very intelligent, and his parents kind of wanted to take advantage of that and make him as intelligent as possible, you know, reach his full potential, I should say. So there was a lot of pressure put on him. You know, he went into a university at only 13 years old. We don't really see too much of the parents, but we know that Fugo was really hostile towards them because of how much pressure and mental torture they put him through during this whole situation. And I wouldn't be surprised if his parents were also somewhat abusive. That tends to happen in those types of families where the idea is that you want to maintain control of your child. So it's like, you have to study, you have to do everything that we tell you to, you have to do this, this, and that, and you have to get a really good job, you know, you have to live up to the honor of our family, because we're so important. Rich people always think that they're important. And if you don't do everything that we expect you, Daddy's gonna get his belt, and we're gonna have a talk. But they don't really say that in this episode, that they were abusive, just that they put him under high amounts of pressure that was slowly eating him away. And every now and then he would go through these fits of rage that he couldn't really control that well. Even as like a really young child, he gets out a switchblade and he's actually like about to stab his dad while he's reading, and he has to control himself like, no, stabbing dad is bad. So, 13-year-old at a university, and this one professor has the hots for him. Very, very clearly, and it, you know, it's implied that they've already kind of done something together. Probably not by choice of Fugo, but this professor is a pedophile, and he really wants Fugo really bad. So he's offering, like, oh, I'll give you the answers to the next test. Just relax. I'll be gentle this time. And he's about to, like, take off his clothes and, like, go for it. Right in the middle of the university. Like, this dude's cocky as hell, no pun intended, and Fugo finally snaps right at that moment, to the point where he can't control himself, and he has the encyclopedia in his hands, and he just, on the ground, murders his professor, his rapist, at age of 13. He gets arrested for that. Doesn't count for self-defense, I guess. I do not know the laws of Italy, so the police are walking him out in cuffs, and, you know, you hear rumors, everyone, and they're like, oh yeah, they were fucking. So everyone kind of knew about it. I felt like maybe that should have got more attention, because it's like, wow, people knew about this shit going down, and they didn't call the cops, they didn't try to help him at all. You had to wait until he snapped and finally beat this dude to death with an encyclopedia. I mean, really, that in itself is pretty bad. Like, this school needs to get its shit together. Then I came across this one little line during this scene that kind of pulled me out. So while he's walking out and you're hearing like these rumors going on, like they're talking about him, this one person, this unknown person goes, well, how do we know he wasn't leading him on? Yes, how do we know that the 13-year-old boy wasn't leading the professor on, being super seductive for that Professor Dick? Like I said, I don't know what it's like in Italy. I don't know what it's like in Japan. I've never been outside of my country. But if you said that shit in America, you yourself would be in danger of being called a pedophile. Because that shit is not, that's not okay to say. Especially in public, if we're, like, talking about, oh, these are rumors going around the school, and these are things, common things that people are saying about him. That's nuts. Everyone at that school would, like, be investigated for saying that type of shit. Like, oh yeah, well, 13-year-old boys are all sluts, you know? How do we know that they don't lead pedophiles on this? But you know, all that stuff, that's not traumatizing enough. This is anime. We gotta go further than that. We gotta really twist that knife. So his parents don't want him to go to jail. So they pay off the court so that they'll find him not guilty. I probably would have found him not guilty even if I didn't have a payout. Then again, I don't know how it works in Italy. I don't know what their laws are like. Kill someone accidentally in self-defense while being in a fit of rage because he's trying to rape you. Kind of makes sense that that would happen. But after his parents make sure that he doesn't get sent to jail, they disown him. Which also kind of makes sense, you know, rich people think that they're important. They need to hold up this standard. They need to make sure that their reputation isn't tainted in any way. So they're like, look, we don't want you to go to jail, don't worry, we'll pay off the fine. But you can't come home anymore. This is too much, we don't want to deal with this. So he kind of, you know, has to survive on his own, but he's a smart guy, so he gets by as he can. One day he's dining and dashing, and that's how he kind of comes into contact with Bruno and eventually gets his stand. Purple Haze is a sentient stand, as it turns out. Now, it's supposed to represent, like, the rage in Fugo. The rage that he tries to keep in. So it's very, very vicious. But it's also kind of a neat freak, which I thought was an interesting little quirk to just throw on it. It's not intelligent by any means, and that's kind of what definitely separates it from Fugo, because it doesn't have the same intelligence, and Giorno kind of mentions it. It's trying to, like, clean itself, but it can't really figure out how to, and Giorno's just like, it's not a smart stand, is it? Abba's like, no. But basically the idea behind Purple Haze is actually pretty interesting. He punches, right? But in his fist there are these little tiny bubbles, and when they break, they release this virus, this poison, and anything that comes into contact with it or breathes it in will die. Just straight up, you're dead. But Purple Haze does not have a very good reach. It's only like 5 meters or something like that. How we wrap up this episode is Purple Haze, upon order of Fugo, who is behind the mirror, of course, punches the mirror so that they cannot get through to him. And that's like a message to stay away from the mirror. Granted, they have to stay away from the mirror now because, you know, you got all this poison around it after he punches it. So Abba is like, let's go. Let's go get the key. Let's go along with our mission. And Giorno reacts to that by saying, hey, fuck you. And then Abba's like, no, fuck you. And then Giorno's like, fuck you times infinity. And Abba's like, got me. The basic idea is Giorno wants to stay and save Fugo. And Abba knows that Fugo doesn't really want them to save him. And as far as they know, they don't really have any way of getting to him. But there's got to be another way of getting to them, because it doesn't matter that the mirror is broken. The Mirror Man inside, who is brutally beating up Fugo this entire time, he doesn't really seem fazed by the mirror breaking. He's like, oh, well, all that will do is prevent your friends from coming in, but I can still get them in here, or I can still defeat them. You know, he preludes to, like, if you won't talk, the other guys will. I can get the other guys to talk. I can do the same thing to them. So there's got to be some other mirror around, or some other way in. Or maybe it's not even just mirrors, maybe it's just reflections. You don't really know the extent of Mirror Man's powers yet. The episode ends with Fugo saying, I'm not going to talk, and Mirror Man basically going like, well, doesn't matter. There's 2 more of you. If you won't talk, one of them will. So it's hinted that he's just going to kill Fugo at the end. And of course, then you get the to be continued. Things look pretty bleak for Fugo, but he might have something else up his sleeve, or maybe he does have to wait for Giorno to come in and save him. And maybe Abba then realizes, oh wait, what am I doing? That's my friend that I'm leaving behind. And he turns around and he comes to save him. And there's like just 3 against 1 and they just beat the shit out of him. But the fight is far from over. Merry Christmas Eve, everyone. Remember to like the video, comment below what you think about this episode. It's ironic, I don't upload on a Friday, I don't upload during the weekend, but I'll upload today, the day before the holiday. I'll probably upload tomorrow. It'll be Christmas related, but I'll probably upload tomorrow. Be sure to check the description for a random JoJo surprise. And to see you guys next time. Bye!
Program restart.
Merry Christmas, we've got ads.
Shutting down all systems.